who are aligned, who are either aiming towards a common purpose or their behavior in fact embodies that directionality towards a common purpose. So the question is, whence coherence? It is a set of interdependencies among people, among the way they think, among the way they act, such that the dynamic as a whole that we call the organization can act as a unit.
If you have a context where you have a low level of task interdependence, and you tell everybody you need to work together as a high-performing team, you lose, there's a gap between what it is you're trying to do and your actual context, right? So this is why I believe this conversation is so important, is there's the illusion that we try to project as leaders in an organization to say our values that we write on the wall, my open door policy to come and see me, and then these constraints such as how we reward people in our system. There's some that drive the behaviors more than others. I just want to get your thoughts on that.
I think that we have to distinguish between the interactions that create that coherence and then how that coherence maintains the participants in that coherence aimed in the right direction. The organization embodies values. The interdependencies that become manifest in behavior are the values that organization possesses, regardless of what anybody writes on the wall. The values are manifested, they're made visible by those interdependencies, because an organization is not a thing. It is a set of interdependencies. It doesn't make it any less real, but we tend to think in terms of things. And when we use nouns like organization, it immediately disposes people to think in terms of things. But it isn't. It's a set of interdependent constraints that become manifest as collective behavior. Those interdependencies that I want to call, the constitutive constraints of the organization. It's what constitutes the organization, or it's the governing constraints of an organization that emerge as a result of certain kinds of interactions among people. I always give a stupid example that comes from Jean-Paul Sartre, which goes back, good God, 50 years or more. And he uses an example way back when, and he certainly didn't know about complexity theory, but people standing at a bus stop who've never seen each other before. And all of a sudden the bus is late, the bus is late, the bus is late, the bus is late. People start looking at each other, what's going on? And now all of a sudden what you have is an instability. It's a gradient. It's a disequilibrium, correct? And then people start asking each other questions. Well, is the schedule right? Is this neon sign that says it's supposed to have been here 15 minutes ago? Is that correct? Where are you? Let me check my app. And all these interactions serve as what I would call enabling constraints.
Okay.
Because what they do is they take people who were prior to those interactions, they were just independent agents. They were not part of a coherent ensemble. But as a result of these interactions that were constrained by the fact that they're all in the same boat, that the bus didn't come, all of a sudden you get the coalescing of what I would call maybe an action group or a group. It's a proto-organization. They are the kinds of interactions that have the potential to generate a higher level of organization, a group. That often happens in a coalescing phase transformation. Now you've got a group, and it's a group that has certain characteristics. They are willing to act as a collective, to go complain to the Department of Motor Vehicle, to the Metro Department. So emergent characteristics appear. Once that group proto-organization coalesces, it constrains in a different sense of constraint, not enabling constraint, but as a constitutive governing constraints the people who are there. Meaning what? Once that group, that proto-group has emerged, it's an awful lot harder just to walk away and say, okay, guys, you're on your own, I'm leaving. I'm going to solve my own problem. Becomes a lot harder. That group has governing constraints on the individuals now. These constraints delimit the behavioral possibility space of the people who are suddenly, what's the word we would use, aligned or entrained or synchronized by that group dynamic, or synchronized into that group dynamic. The values are in the power of that group to make sure that this person doesn't walk away from the group and say, you're on your own, guys.